Today we are going to take a look at Rashford's strengths and weaknesses so you can get a better understanding why his performances over the last 3 years have been so limited and lackluster. So throughout the Ole period, when Rashford was scoring goals and taking on defenders, he was a threat to opposition's teams. This is when the problem would start for Rashford because the overhyping would begin and many people would be blinded by the hype and could not see that Rashford still had holes in his game that needed improving, but the hype kept growing and the improvement did not. And with Manchester United at the time not having any structure in the team, plus not having good coaches to improve his deficiencies, didn't help either, and by then the hype has built up to where people start to assume that Rashford can do things that elite and top established players can do, like being able to be the team's main creative source, leading the team by constantly demanding the ball, being a game changer by getting the crowd up, creating chances out of the blue for teammates, or scoring a world-class goal. But the problem was, Rashford wasn't doing none of the above because when United needed someone to drive the team forward, Rashford went missing. If Manchester United needs someone to create or bring composure to the team, he goes missing. If United needed the crowd or the team lifted, then he is not the one. What Rashford was doing was converting chances and scoring important goals that were winning games and getting him headlines, but the performances were not of the highest level. So when the goals dried up, he was left being judged by his performances solely. And that's when the negative press would begin because now everyone believes that Rashford is a top player, so rightfully people were going to scrutinize his performances and highlight the holes in his game that were always there even when he was scoring goals. This is why the management team of Manchester United at the time should have had a lot to answer for. Because they were working with him day in and day out. They should have been able to identify his deficiencies, instead they treated him like he was an elite player, constantly playing him when it did not benefit the player. They should have treated him like a top prospect and been substituting him even when he was scoring if his performances wasn't at an expected level. A perfect example is Sancho against Liverpool. He scored a goal and the team were still winning. He wasn't playing awful, but Ten Hag took him off even though he is his best winger. Ole should have gave Rashford time on the bench when his performances weren't at an expected level. Or even just to recharge. So it could keep him on his toes and for him to know that he has to raise his performances. What fans, pundits, and YouTubers need to understand is when you're claiming a certain player is a top or elite player, then scoring goals is their main contribution to their team, especially as a wide player, midfielder, fullback or defender, that should never be enough to put a player in the reckoning to be talked up as a top player. Because they have other assignments in their roles that need to be fulfilled first consistently. If you want your team to have balance and cohesion, that should trump personal goals. It's exactly like how people hyped up Bruno. Some United fans need to understand that Rashford has never been a creative wide player. Of the likes of Zaha, Saint-Maximin, and Martial. The basic fundamentals needed to be a creative wide player is a good first touch, close control when dribbling the ball, so you can manipulate the ball better, and they need to be inventive and have a creative mind to adjust to changing scenarios. But Rashford has never had these types of skill sets. In the last 2 or 3 years, Rashford has been playing like an inside forward, similar to Aubameyang, Werner, Lacazette, or Richarlison, where he mainly wants to get himself in goal-scoring positions and is focusing more on cutting in and shooting. And I believe this transition in his game is because of the 1920 season and 2021 season where he hit 20+ goals back-to-back and was getting a lot of headlines and praise. So his main focus has been trying to maintain the output of those years. Which has changed Rashford's game slightly, because earlier in his career he was more in the mold of wide players like Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon, Demarai Gray, Hudson-Odoi. A player who will pick up the ball and run directly at defenders and beat them mainly with pace, which helps the team move up the pitch quicker. Although I do believe all the players above were better than Rashford at taking on their defenders. What Rashford excelled over players like them was his end product, mainly with goals, plus being decent at taking defenders on with his pace. But looking forward, I do believe that Rashford can improve his game with some tweaks. Because watching Rashford over the last 3 years, I have seen a possible skill set that Rashford doesn't take advantage of more, and if he starts to use it, it could possibly open up his whole game and make everything much more easier for him, and then maybe he might be able to get near the heights people hyped him up to be. And the skill set I'm talking about is his ability to strike the ball. If you watched Rashford over the years when he has played on the right-hand side, although his performances have not been the best and he has not looked that comfortable there, but there has been times when he has put the ball in from the right and his crosses have very good whip and shape on them, same as when he is on the left and he cuts in and crosses the ball with good whip shape and dip. So if Rashford started to use crossing as his first go-to action, because the way Ten Hag likes to play is the wingers hold the width, so when he receives the ball he pushes it out of his feet and whips it in from the left or the right, then this should encourage players to make runs into the box, which would add another dimension to Manchester United and Rashford's games. It will also allow him to use his other skill set easier, because he can set everything up from using the cross as a feint, because eventually they will be instructed to close down and block his crosses, so then he will be able to kick it past them and use his pace or have more space to get a shot off. But if Rashford continues without improvement, he will end up as a squad player for Manchester United, who will play a prominent role from the bench, and with his pace and movement, his running in behind will be trouble for tiring defenders. Plus, if any goal-scoring chances falls to Rashford, when on form he is a very good finisher. But the problem will be Elanga, because Rashford and Elanga are very similar in technical ability and play style, so there would be competition for those minutes. Plus, there is another potential threat waiting patiently in the wings who goes by the name of Garnacho, who plays with no fear and is very direct. But this is a possible scenario if Manchester United sign Anthony